In this lecture, we're going to be talking ethics versus morals and how they apply in EMS. Out of the gate, what are ethics? These are the principles that we let guide us in what is right and wrong. There are many things that shape what each person's ethics are, and honestly, they can differ from person to person. The experiences you had in life, the society that you grew up in, the religion that you may have grown up in, or the cultural surroundings that you had are all going to be something that shape your ethics. They can also be shaped by the areas that you work in, and we'll talk more about that in just a little bit. Your ethics are not laws. While many ethics align closely with laws that you may see, like stealing is wrong, stealing is also illegal. However, the idea that stealing is wrong would be the ethical tie, as opposed to stealing is illegal is the law side of it. So something that is a law has sanctions, are enforceable, and they're going to define what you can and cannot do as a provider from the legal side. In a future lecture, we're going to talk more about the legality of what we do in EMS and what would be legal versus illegal for you as a provider. The rest of this lecture is strictly going to be the ethical grounds. So there are two different types of ethics, personal and professional, and oftentimes they do align. Where we need to think about it is when they differ. So personal ethics. This is what is shaped by your religion, your community, your upbringing. Oftentimes people refer to their personal ethics as their conscience. What is guiding you? What is telling you what is right versus what is wrong for you to be doing? Professional ethics are what has been set by our work community, and this can differ from organization to organization that you work at, or we also have it set by the greater regulatory bodies. A lot of times you'll hear your professional ethics are kind of delineated by your code of professional conduct. There's also some state and federal laws that help shape that code of conduct. Again, and most of the time, they work hand in hand. Things like not doing harm to a patient, to making sure that every action you do for that patient isn't malicious, that you're doing it in good faith. That whenever you work in the field, you always have the patient and everybody who you're coming into contact with's best interest at heart. Again, you're not doing anything with malice. It's the times where your personal and your professional ethics can kind of differ that you may be put into a hard spot. You have a patient who does not want to be resuscitated. They do have a DNR. They can't find the DNR. The family can't. Professional ethics would tell you, and the law would tell you, that you need to work that cardiac arrest. Personal ethics. You may be torn. You know the patient's dying wishes. Family's telling you they did not want to be resuscitated. They have some type of life-limiting illness. They knew this was coming. If you are able to successfully resuscitate them, you're probably not bringing them back to a very good quality of life. So what do you do? Do you say, I'll take the gamble, the family's not going to bring up an issue anyways, I'll go ahead and I'll bite, I won't work that cardiac arrest. My personal ethics are telling me to honor that patient's dying wish. Or are you going to stick with your professional ethics? My SOPs tell me that if I don't, and state regulations and laws, that if I do not have a valid, untampered with copy of that DNR in hand, I have to work this cardiac arrest. Each provider, and honestly, from situation to situation, it might be a slightly different take and a slightly different thing that you would do. They often will come into conflict like that. One way that you can make sure to stick on good ethical ground and be acting in your patient's best interest is with the mnemonic that's I care. To approach every patient with integrity, compassion, accountability, respect, and empathy. Different codes, promises, declarations, oaths that you may see that relate to medical ethics. There's the Hippocratic Oath, which medical professionals, especially doctors, take. A play or an augmentation of the Hippocratic Oath is the Declaration of Geneva. It was crafted in 1948. It was actually just updated recently in 2017. And it's less of an oath. They call it a pledge. So Hippocratic Oath is an oath. The Declaration of Geneva is a pledge. And they ask their members of the medical profession to pledge something very simple, that they're dedicating their life to the service of humanity. Health and well-being of their patient will be their first consideration, that they'll respect the autonomy and dignity of every patient, They'll maintain the utmost respect for human life. They will not permit considerations of age, disease or disability, creed, ethnic origin, gender, nationality, political affiliation, race, sexual orientation, social standing, or any other factors to intervene between my duty and my patient. That they'll respect the secrets that are confided in me even after the patient has died. That they will practice the profession with conscience and dignity and in accordance with good medical practice. They'll foster and honor and the noble traditions of the medical profession, and that they'll give to their teachers, colleagues, and students the respect and gratitude that is their due. They'll share their medical knowledge for the benefit of the patient and the advancement of healthcare. That they'll attend to their own health, well-being, and abilities in order to provide and care for the highest standard. That they will not use their medical knowledge to violate any human rights, civil liberties, even if under threat. And lastly, that they're making these promises solemnly, freely, and upon their honor. We have something similar in EMS. So it's the EMS Code of Ethics. It was established by the NAEMT in 1978, and we still actually use this one today. Under this code, we're asking anybody who works in EMS to pledge to conserve life, alleviate suffering, promote health, to do no harm, and encourage the quality and equal availability of emergency medical care to all. To provide services based on human need with compassion and respect for human dignity, unrestricted by considerations of nationality, race, creed, color, or status. To not judge the merits of the patient's request for service, nor allow the patient's socioeconomic status to influence our demeanor or the care that we provide. To not use professional knowledge and skills in any enterprise that'll be detrimental to the public well-being. To respect and hold in confidence all information of a confidential nature obtained in the course of professional service unless required by law to divulge such information. To use social media in a responsible and professional manner that does not discredit, dishonor, or embarrass an EMS organization, coworker, healthcare practitioner, patient, individual, or the community at large. To maintain professional competence, striving always for clinical excellence in the delivery of patient care. Assume responsibility in upholding standards of professional practice and education. To assume responsibility for individual professional actions and judgment, both independent and independent emergency functions, and to know and uphold the laws which affect the practice of EMS. To be aware of and participate in matters of legislation and regulation that affect EMS. To work cooperatively with EMS associates and other allied healthcare professionals at the best interest of our patients, and to refuse to participate in unethical procedures and assume responsibility to expose incompetence or unethical conduct in others to the appropriate authority. A lot of words in both of these, but they really come down to one thing. Do what's best by your patient. Do not do anything in malice, to not bring harm, and to maintain the respect and the dignity of our professions at large. That you are a professional always, whether you're on or off duty, which can be difficult. The reason these pledges are there is because you as a professional are expected to be accountable for your actions at all times. This is honestly whether you're on or off the clock. Because most of us do have some form of social media. And on that social media, whether it's you've listed where you work or you've taken a picture in uniform at some time, you have identified yourself as an EMS professional. That puts us in a spot where we're really never truly off duty. We might not be getting paid. We might not be clocked in. You might not be on the volunteer clock, but you have signed up and you are working in a profession that we have to maintain that respect and that professionalism to have good interactions with our patient and to be able to give them the best patient care. And because of that, 100% of the time, you're accountable for your actions. What's going to keep you on that kind of right and path and make sure that you don't slip up and that you always do right by your patient are your ethics, clinging to them, knowing what you will and what you won't stand for, to never let somebody be unprofessional or immature to you or around your patients. This can get tough. Most of us have pretty dark senses of humor. That's how we cope with the job that we're working in. The patients never really need to see that though. And I talked about this in a previous lecture. If you've listened to any of mine before, I'm not under any delusion that we're not going to get tired and that we're not going to have those days where we're really just struggling to kind of be there, right? Like we're all humans. Burnout is unfortunately something we deal with, and knowing how to prepare for that is important. But your mindset really dictates a lot of that. And if you're choosing and it is a choice to try to always maintain that professional front with your patients, it'll go a long way. I do something called the windshield. If I can see my patient, I can see my patient's residence, I can see any part of the scene through my windshield. It's time for me to start being professional, because it's not unrealistic that if I can start to see them through the windshield, they can start to see me through the windshield. And so even though I'm not technically on scene yet, and I technically haven't made it to my patient yet, from that moment when I can see the scene, I'm now in my fully professional stance. I need to make sure that I am holding myself with the conduct that I would expect of somebody who was coming to me in a medical emergency. We don't see this a whole lot with EMS, but we see it with other facets of public safety, that the negative perception that the public gets really deeply impacts the care you're able to render. In order for us to effectively do our job, we have to have the full trust of the people who we're taking care of. You should assume 100% of the time you're being recorded, whether it's on somebody's cell phone, whether it's some type of camera that they have in their home, some type of camera in the public place. You're always being recorded. Act like you are. Do not say or do things that are inappropriate. Do not say or do things that you wouldn't want to experience if you or your loved one were in their position. And make sure to treat everybody equally. There's never a reason, regardless of their race, their gender, their sexual orientation, who they voted for, who they didn't vote for, what their socioeconomic status is, that we should ever treat somebody differently. They all deserve the exact same access to emergency medical care. Because it doesn't matter what any of those factors are for you to have that medical emergency or for you to have that accident, that incident that occurred that led us being there. So we need to treat everybody as if they're exactly the same. Treat everyone like they're your most loved person that you have in your life. When you treat people like that, you will feel more fulfilled in your job. You're holding true to your personal ethics and professional ethics at that point, which is going to let you last in this field longer without being burnt out. Because again, it's your mindset. If you are doing right and you're nurturing your soul by holding to your ethics and doing what your guiding conscience is telling you is right or wrong, then you're going to end up having a pretty okay day. If you see people that are acting in a manner that you find unprofessional, that you find negligent to your patient, to your coworkers, whoever it is, speak up and say something. You very much are responsible for the future of our field, for the future of EMS, for how seriously people take us, and for all the complaining we do that we want to be taken more seriously and we need to be paid more money. You are responsible for that. You're responsible for being the face of the movement and the change that you want to see, for being a good steward for our profession and proving to people that we are a profession. Some of our ethics will bleed over into EMS research. Almost every agency participates in some form of research. Unfortunately, EMS practices have largely evolved through grassroots efforts. There are very few massive studies that are solely for EMS. It's almost always that we're feeding into some other type of registry. So like the American Heart Association does a yearly registry about STEMIs, NSTEMIs, strokes. And a lot of that data does come from EMS. Your service is submitting data to those registries. And we're getting some of the research benefit for it, but it's not just EMS. It's also in facility. It's looking at cath lab or PCI ready hospitals versus hospitals that don't have PCI and the delays in patient care and how that affects patient outcomes. So we're one small cog in that much bigger research pool that they're doing. And a lot of our research that is done has also come from overseas. That's why we see, of all the facets of pre-hospital medicine, the one that has progressed the most recently is airway management in the presence of interstitial lung disease or something like along the lines of COVID. Because of COVID and the effect that it was having on the lungs and like ARDS, we were able to do a mass amount of research anecdotally to find out what would best help these patients. Past that, it's been a lot of trauma care, because we had access to a lot of research that was being done. And again, a lot of anecdotal treatment that they were testing out and seeing would work in a war zone. Well, that's going to translate over to us because we are pre-hospital. They're not actively in a hospital because they're They're in that war theater. So what is kind of nice about EMS practices in research and why it'll kind of almost always stay in that grassroots effort is because of how we have to implement it. We really can't pick and choose what patients will get what treatment. To say that we can't make one group the controlled group. So to say, this person, I'm going to withhold this treatment for. Because I got to have a control group. I got to have a group where I haven't changed anything. But then if they have a worse outcome and the whole reason, and they weren't consenting to that research, it's not like you told them, hey, I've got this new procedure that could really drastically change your care and your outcome. Are you willing to do the one that is kind of working, but obviously we're looking for a better way to do it. That's why we're researching this better way, this new piece of equipment. So it's really hard to properly randomize and then have a good control group in pre-hospital medicine. So it tends to be like an all or nothing anecdotally, and we'll compare one agency that has started implementing these changes, that has started piloting these new things, with an agency that has very similar providers, very similar size, very similar patient groups, similar call types, similar call volume, and they are the control. They didn't do it. So it's not one group of patients, it's a whole swath of patients. But we're not pointing at an agency and saying, you don't change, you do change, and then we'll compare the two of you. It's, again, anecdotal that this group had really good turnout, this group had not so good turnout, this group was using the new thing, this group wasn't. It's a lot of reviewing and doing case studies on what has already been done. Why we kind of fall in that is to, again, we don't want to do any harm to our patients. When we're coming in and we're looking at the treatment and how we're taking care of and we're approaching our patients, it should always be to do no harm, to always put your patient's best interest and to be acting with not just full compassion, but that they're always getting your best, that they're always getting the current medicine that you know how to practice, regardless of how the rest of your day has been. They, at a minimum, deserve that. Thank you for listening to me ramble slightly, but talk about ethics and how that kind of applies to EMS. If you have any questions, please let your instructor know.